Hello everyone, it's Brett here, Lionheart84. It's Sunday the 3rd of July, so it's time for my monthly walk around video and sum up, which I do at the beginning of each month so that I can keep a diary of how things are progressing in the garden or not progressing each year, and for anyone that's interested to see how things are progressing. It's a relatively cool day. Some clouds in the sky and a light breeze. There are breaks in the clouds, so the sun is coming out every so often, and it certainly warms up very quickly. Apologies in advance for if the quality of the video is not very good or it's a bit shaky. I accidentally left my tablet at work that I normally do the filming on, so I'm just using my phone today, so I don't know how it's going to work out. The only good thing is the tablet's very short on memory, whereas the phone's got plenty of memory, so it doesn't mean I've got to sort of really race and cut things too short. So in this video I cover my sort of hardy unusual plants and normal garden plants as well. This doesn't cover any of the pot growing citrus or tropicals. I'll do those in a separate video. So let's get started and run through things quickly. Obviously I'll miss plants out as we go along. Can't remember to do them all, but I'll try and mention most of the stuff I've got. So we'll start off with my Crimson Bonfire Patio peach, which is doing quite well. Had a little bit of peach leaf curl at the beginning of the year. It's not looking too bad now. The leaves don't seem to be quite as purple as last year, perhaps because we haven't had as much sun. They have got a couple of I think it's got 3 or 4 fruits holding on it still only about an inch big. These ornamental peaches don't tend to grow fruits, in my experience, as big and as quickly as the proper cultivars that have been developed for growing. I think this probably needs feeding as well, but it's still holding on to a few fruits, but it's really more for ornamental purposes, for flowering and the leaves and anything else. But we'll need some more sunshine if we want to see some more leaf colour on it. So progressing on from there, got some flowering plants here. That's a Daphne. Behind it is my Butilon, which flowers pretty much non-stop all summer. They're a bit of a straggly, spindly looking plant, but it's still doing okay. I've got a pot grown pomegranate that has never done anything. I should imagine the roots, it's probably pot bound now, and it suffers variously from being too dry and then from getting waterlogged, so I've not found them to be a very good plant for pot growing, and it's only ever produced the odd flower on it. I think if I had a large garden and I put it in ground, I think it would really do well and probably flower, maybe even fruit, but unfortunately I haven't got the conditions to offer it. Behind the little Daphne is my in-ground planted Chilean Guava, variegated one, Ugni Molini Flambeau, and for whatever reason it seems to have almost, compared to my parents' one, which is covered in flowers, mine's got almost no flower buds on it at all. I think because it's in too much competition with the other plants and probably not getting enough exposed to sun and light. Next to it is a camellia, just ornamental purposes. On the wall I've got my kiwi berry that was originally bought as Acai, and unfortunately, having spent 2 or 3 years in ground growing, discovered it wasn't Acai. So although it's produced a few flowers, and here comes the sun, although it's produced a few flowers the last couple of years, I haven't got a flowering male, so it's never been pollinated, so the fruits don't set, which has been a big bone of contention for me, and very, very frustrating. Moving forward, that sad looking individual is one of a pair of camellias I've got growing in pots, which are clearly very root bound, lacking in nutrients, lacking in iron in the soil or magnesium, so I really must get round to repotting them in some acidic soil and see if I can revitalise them. I mean, they're quite healthy apart from the shocking colour of the leaves, but obviously it means they're not flowering very well. Now, tucked away in the ground down here I have my in-ground lemon. It's a Myers lemon. It's now been in 3 or 4 years and survived several winters. Just starting to grow a little bit better now, but it always looks a bit yellowish after winter because of the roots get over wet and they can't take up nutrients. But it's not looking too bad, and I'm assuming as it gets bigger it will gradually get stronger. Has had a few flowers on it, does set the occasional embryo fruit, but they haven't yet amounted to anything. I think the plant's just too small to support growing larger fruit, but hopefully that will improve as time goes by. Next to it I've got my one of my blueberries. Can't remember, I've got 3 varieties, but I can't remember without looking at the labels which one is which. But as you can see, this has got perfectly edible fruits on it at the moment, and I have bagged some of the trusses of fruits to try and save them from the birds, but they don't always spot the fruits anyway. Look, you can see these here, they're absolutely fine, quite a nice colour and perfectly edible. I think I've got a Darrow, a Jersey, and another variety which I forget, but I really don't know which one's which. Now on the other hand, this is one of my named varieties of pineapple guava. This particular one is Mammoth. Only had 1 or 2 flowers on it last year, so I only got a couple of small fruits, but this year it's got plenty of flowers on it, and I have been hand pollinating them with other varieties, so I'm really hoping that this year we should get, no reason why I shouldn't get a dozen fruits, but won't know till probably the end of July which ones have set. But it's still flowering, still producing more. There's more buds developing here, so there's no shortage of flowers on it. Another one of my blueberries here, this particular one, I think this one is the Darrow, produces considerably smaller fruits than the other one. I mean, they're perfectly edible still. A little bit pink, that one, but quite nice to eat straight off the plant. And the last one, which is Jersey, there's this one in the ground here. It's meant to be a later fruiting one, but to be honest, they all seem to produce fruits at exactly the same time. Behind it on the wall I've got an ornamental passion flower. Again, another one that was supplied incorrectly. Originally bought it with it listed as Incarnata, and when it had been in for a year and flowers, it turned out to be Amethyst, which is one of the hardy crosses with Caerulea. So never any edible fruits on that, sadly. Now here I've got my unnamed seedling variety pineapple guava. Fruits on it are small, round, not much good at all. The flowering is very poor on it, which I'm going to cover in another video, but I have left it for the time being because it's going to be a bit of a mission to get it out anyway, because it's quite a substantial plant, and it is useful for cross-pollination purposes because it gets plenty of flower buds on it, so at least I can use it to pollinate my other varieties. Now you can probably see these are later this year. I've got quite a few amaryllis in the garden, and last year, not amaryllis, Agypanthus, and last year they were fully open by the end of June, but in the end of beginning of July, and they're not even fully open yet, any of the flowers. But c'est la vie. Now behind the Figel I've got an unnamed seedling growing Asian persimmon, that's khaki. Now these vary considerably from seed, and it's had a few flowers on it this year, and it is a male, unfortunately. It was the very first persimmon I ever got before I could find any named varieties, and unfortunately it has turned out to be a male plant. Now I've got various options. I could conceivably remove it, because it's going to grow into quite a large tree in my border, and without fruits on it, it seems a bit pointless. It might not survive moving, but I could probably try and winter and take it and maybe plant it at my parents'. Or I could conceivably cut it back and try and graft on it. But of course, when you've got a plant that's so multi-branched, it won't be easy to keep an eye on which varieties are your grafted varieties. But that is a consideration, to try and graft some named varieties onto it so that it becomes a little bit more useful. I don't mind keeping it there. Behind it is a Caesalpinia, which is a sort of semi-tropical flowering plant, and it is producing some flower buds now, so by the end of the month we should have a few flowers on display on it. Bit of a spindly looking shrub again. I think it quite doesn't get enough light here, unfortunately. Now I'm just going to try and lean over the back between these two, and obviously not liking the position at all is a named variety of pawpaw, which is sunflower, and I really think it's getting far too much competition here and not enough light and food to do any good. So although it's still alive, it's never really taken off, so I'm thinking that I might have to try and dig that out, although they really don't transplant well, but I might have to dig that out and put it in a giant pot and see what happens. But I'll make a decision on that next winter when everything else has lost its leaves. Behind it on the fence is a campsis that's purely there for decorative purposes. It's grown right up over the top of the fence now, so that should be flowering probably in the next 2 or 3 weeks. In front of it I've got a butterfly bush, a buddleia, which is in here to attract the bees. Now at the front here I've got my in-ground pomegranate, not a named variety, and it has produced a couple of flowers before. I was really expecting it, as it's got so big and doing so well, to have a load of flowers on it this year, and yet we're in the beginning of July and there's no sign of a single flower bud on it. And this is often the case with pomegranates over here. We don't get the heat that they like, being from a Mediterranean climate, to trigger the flowering. And of course, if they don't flower till July or August, it's too late for them to set fruits. Next to it I've got a bottle brush. Didn't flower this year because I cut it back really hard last summer, because I wanted to try and give enough room for the pineapple, guava and pomegranate, which were more important to me. So I didn't get any flowers at all this year. Now next to it I've got another Feijoa pineapple guava. This one is Triumph. This fruited quite well for me last year, and I probably had about, I don't know, maybe 15 fruits on it, and it's had plenty of flowers on it again this year. So provided I get some fruit set, I should have, I mean, there's no reason why it couldn't produce sort of between a dozen and 2 dozen guavas. And in fact what I've done is, on this one, this is for my own interest, and I don't know if it's going to set, but I tied a piece of string next to the very first flower that opened this year. Now the problem is it hasn't dropped off yet, but it also isn't swelling, so I was interested to see how long they would take to develop from flower to fruit. And I think this first flower opened on the 2nd week of June, but I'd have to look back at my videos about the middle of June. But there's still no way of telling if it's set because it hasn't started swelling. But we'll probably know by the end of July which fruits have set and which ones haven't. Now next to it in ground I've got my beautiful seedling Unnamed Pawpaw. Now this had a lot of flowers on it this year, but despite doing a lot of hand pollinating, I was really hoping to get a lot of set on this. Now as it's a seed grown one, it's probably not self-fertile, but I did have flowers on my Prima, which gave me a chance to cross-pollinate, and I thought I had about a dozen to 15 fruits appear to have set, but they started to swell and then they all dropped off, unfortunately, except for one which I only found at a later point. If I look up behind here, I've got 3 fruits, and last year I think I had 5 or 6. Unfortunately I've only got 3 fruits that appear to have set on this, and they look pretty strong so far for early July, and I'll put a piece of string on the branch so that it would be easy to find them amongst the foliage. So I'm not going to have the large crop I was hoping for this year, but it looks like 3 may make it to maturity if they don't get attacked by insects or birds. In front here on the ground is my Crenum Powellii. Hopefully it's going to produce a few flowers for me this year. That will probably be August, September. And tucked away behind it is my tree peony that's getting better year on year. Now, moving to pot grown plant. This one here is a carob. Doing quite nicely now. It's had plenty of new growth on it. It's looking quite healthy. I've got a few small fruits in pots here. I've got a couple of Asiatic figs that have been savaged by slugs, unfortunately. This little plant, pretty little plant here, which has been growing, is my Natal Plum. I think it's very pot bound and could do with repotting, so that might be a job for the next week or so. I might even do it today if I get time. Don't know what sort of soil they like, but I'll have a look and see if I can find out. So my figs are doing quite well. This one here is my only grafted one. I grafted a Adriatic onto a brown turkey. Here's the graft. The graft's just here where my little finger is, and that's taken well. I did that last spring of last year, so that's looking pretty good. Hasn't grown an awful lot. So looking at my raised border here, we'll just quickly step over the top. We've got my in-ground, as an experiment, strawberry guava. The supplier didn't quote whether it was yellow or red, so that remains to be seen. But it's got plenty of flower buds on it, which, if we get some warm weather, I would guess they're going to open in the next couple of weeks. Got badly cut back by cold weather and frosts in summer, but it's come back really, really well. So I'm hoping as it gets much stronger this year that we're not going to have any major dieback next winter unless we get a really cold winter. Excuse me. I've got my yuzu here in ground. Only produced one flower this year, which dropped off, but it's had lots of new growth. So I think the root system's been busy establishing itself, so I'm hoping that next year, provided it does okay over winter, that we'll see plenty of flowers on it, and we'll see how it does. Next to it is Luma apiculata. Had this in since last summer when I did this raised bed. Looking very healthy. Hasn't flowered. Don't know what size or age you have to be to flower, but I'm nevertheless pleased with how it's progressing. Let's gradually step back onto the ground here again. Easier said than done. Excuse me. So we've got here my in-ground. This is another Chilean Guava. This is one I bought particularly for fruiting, and this is Capao. Has larger flowers than the variegated one that I featured. They're just starting to open now, so it should produce larger fruit as well. I've got two honeyberries in ground here, which I've cut back. Very disappointed with those. The fruits were, as far as I'm concerned, inedible. But you have to try these things to see what happens, and I've now been told there's only a couple of varieties that produce decent sweet fruit. We've got here first of my mulberries. This one is agate. Has got a few flowers on it, which a few fruits on it, which might well be deemed to be edible soon if they don't get grabbed by birds or snails. Behind that I've got my Szechuan pepper plant. This is growing really nicely, and I've had to pinch the top off because it's got up to 6 feet tall and wasn't really branching, so I've now pinched it off, and hopefully we'll get lots of side branches on it. Down on the ground here I've got a couple of rootstock Jujubes here, which I removed from my other plants before they got sickly, so there's a possibility I can graft onto these, or I can just grow them on as a seedling and see if they produce edible fruit. I'm just going to walk through the jungle here. Excuse me. Find my way to the back. At the back I've got my Illinois ever-bearing mulberry, recovering well after its repotting in the spring, but because of that the fruits frankly are not of an edible size or not worth eating. I mean, you can pick this off, but there's nothing to eat on it this year, but hopefully better next year. This is my pomegranate. This is Molar Delsh, died back completely. Don't know what caused the problem, but the tree the main tree completely died back, but as it will have been grown from a cutting, that does mean that these all these suckers that come up should also be Molardel. So I'll cut the trunk off and grow this as a bush. Next to it I've got a Cornice Cuza. No sign of any flowers this year, probably because I'm growing it in a pot which will restrict its growth, but I have put it into a much bigger container this year, so I'm hoping there's still a chance of getting flowers and fruits on it in a container. To the side here I've got one of my tree grown persimmons. This is meant to be Hanafuyu, but I'm not totally convinced from the leaves that it's going to turn out to be what it's meant to be. We shall see. At the back here, and not enjoying the position unfortunately. It's looking not very good at all after its repotting. It's the first of my Asian pears. It has got fruits on it, but they're very small for the beginning of July. Not looking good at all. This one is my Shinziki, and this is the worst it's looked really. I think I need to get feeding on it, and hopefully I can boost its growth a bit. It's holding the fruits, but I'm just not sure. There's some splitting on them as well. It's probably inconsistent watering. This one's been got at by birds, but I'm a little bit concerned that it's probably too dry now. Definitely looks like it needs watering, but I'm a bit concerned that it needs, it's not in the best position, it's not getting enough light. Next to it I've got a Hong Li, which again doesn't look brilliant. It's got a couple of fruits on it, but it's not looking its best. I mean, I have repotted them, and it might take a while for them to reset because I repotted them this spring. My most recent one is this one here. Obviously no fruits on it because I only got it bare root this spring. This is Kumoy. There's no reason why I shouldn't produce some fruits next year. Dead Jujube here. This one didn't make it after the repotting. It died back last year. I think it got waterlogged. Next to it, however, I've got a Lee, which didn't die. That seems to be doing very nicely now. Got plenty of flower buds on it. It won't fruit. These aren't doing very well in pots. They need to be in ground, and just sadly that I haven't got a garden large enough to plant all these things in ground. This mulberry here is my Moldovan pink. Again, it's one I've repotted, so it's taken it a while to get re-established, and you tend to lose, unfortunately, the flowers when you repot them. Although they're fast growers, they don't grow too fast in this country. Just got a few tiny fruitlets on it, but nothing worth bothering about eating. Another of my dead Jujubes. This one is a Lee. However, there's recovery from the rootstock, which is really handy because if I can grow that on well, I can simply graft back onto it. And my other Jujube over there is a Lang, and again that's got flower buds on it, so that's not doing too badly. Feed my way through the jungle again. This is my Persimmon. This one's Costata, had one flower on it, and so far the single fruit's holding. Amazing leaves on it, look at the size of that. Now these tend to flush out growth twice a year. You get a flush now, you get a flush in the spring, and this will flush out again probably sometime in late July and get another burst of growth. My poor Prima, again one I've repotted this year. It's taken a while to adjust to the repotting. It's not thriving. It does have a few fruits on it, which I think at this point those look as if they'll drop off, but it's got a few hidden at the back that I can't quite show. Those look as if they're whole, but it looks like I'm only going to have 2 or 3 Prima fruit this year, unfortunately. The one in front's really responded well to its repotting. This variety is Pennsylvania Golden. Excuse me. And it looked really ropey in the pot it was in, but it's really responded well to being repotted, so I'm pleased about that one. Now I'm not going to go through all the persimmons, but I've got various other American and Asian persimmon varieties here in various stages of recovery from the frost they had in the spring. There is one that has some flower buds on it, Morris Burton. I don't yet know if they're going to set fruits. It was only a small fruit last year, about an inch, but we'll see what happens. But most of the others, we look around, they're looking quite good at the moment, not bad at all. Walk out the front again. Got Japanese, this is my Japanese raisin tree. This is looking nice now. Got frosted, but recovered really nicely. Got a lovely form to it. And sorry, got interrupted by a courier driver shouting at me. Yes, that's a Japanese raisin tree. Next to it, I've got my my blue sausage tree, Decaisnia fargesii. This one's doing much better than the last one I had, which died from root rot. Didn't get any flowers on it because it got frosted. Nikita's Gift persimmon next to it. My goji berries. Don't like being pot grown, get savaged by snails and slugs. I don't know if we're going to see any flowers on it, but not too worried really. Can't seem to keep these King White mulberries alive. I had 3 of them and they've all died off in the frost. Excuse me, they've all died off in the frost we had in April, and then they've all been attacked by snails and slugs, and every time they try to grow out, the growth dies off. So I think the roots are compromised. I think they're going to have to come out and be potted in a different compost, unfortunately. I'm not going to run through all my figs, but I've repotted most of them in the spring, and they're not looking too bad. This one's a bit yellowy for whatever reason. Don't know why that should be. Perhaps it's lack of water. This one's my Chinese mulberry or Acai fruit. That's Maclura tricuspidata, quite slow growing, but it looks quite healthy. I've got a pomegranate in ground here, which, in a pot here, which is the variety Wonderful. Again, doesn't like, as you can see, doesn't particularly like being grown in pots. They seem to suffer from yellowing stem growths. Another mulberry behind, I think that one's Carmen. That has got a few small fruits on it. If I can step a bit closer. White ones, might almost be, I'm just going to pop that off. It's almost edible, but not quite. Yeah, it's sweet, nothing wrong with that. Doing quite nicely. Various figs here, various varieties. I'm not going to run through them all. No fruits on me yet, although some of them are producing some fruitlets, which would be the summer crop. Don't know if I'm going to, having repotted them this year, I'm not sure if any of them are going to fruit, but we'll see what happens. Again, various fruit varieties at the bottom of fig. Got a little another little pawpaw here that I've repotted, and I hope that it starts to recover. This one's KSU Atwood. Never really done the thing since I've had it. Doesn't like being in a pot at all. And in front of it, a seedling, unknown seedling variety of pawpaw, which is again pretty weedy looking. Behind that is my medlar. Looks like it's set some fruits which are going to be fine for this year. Again, pot growing. I'm going to keep that in that pot this year, and then next year I'll put it into a larger one. Some of my other pot growing pineapple guava varieties. This one here is Coolidge. The one next to it is, I think, Apollo. Let's have a look, see. Yeah, that's Apollo. No flower buds on them at all this year, and they've barely started growing. Again, they don't like being in containers, so I think they need a repot to revamp them. This one is Marion, pineapple guava, another one that's not happy in pots at the moment. Looking very weedy, but again, I think it's going to have to be repotted to revitalise it. That's one of my 2 loquats that I cut back. That's coming back really well. I think that one is, let's reach forward and see the label. That one, oh, that's Oliver, which means the other one's Mrs. Cookson. More pineapple guavas at the back. There's Gemini, Mammoth, and another Triumph. Again, no growth and flower buds on them. I think they're too restricted in the pot, so they're going to have to be repotted. Might even do that today. might still get some flowers this year. Another variegated Chilean Guava tucked away down there. Next to it I've got a little flat satin or donut peach. This is one of my persimmons that died off, and this is just the rootstock, which I think is probably lotus. Might try grafting back onto that. That's the loquat Mrs. Cookson. Two more pineapple guavas here. I think we've got a, let me have a look. That one's Nikita, and the one behind it, Unique, and they can both the Unique and the Nikita have got plenty of flower buds on them, so they should see some flowers. Got a genuine, this mulberry here is a genuine, this is Repsine, which is a genuine Morris Nigra, one of the black mulberries, but these only fruit as much more mature trees, so there's no sign of any fruits on that yet. But it's not looking too bad in the pot, but I think it's going to need a much bigger pot. Behind it is my Cali carper, Aphrodite, another pot bound plant. This is a problem, unfortunately, you've got them in containers. It's just too much work and not enough space and time to repot all of them. But as I said, my loquats seem to be responding well to repotting and moving into fabric pots. I tried a couple of grafts on my persimmon rootstocks here. Don't seem to have anything happened on that one, and nothing seems to have happened on that one as well. They're just the first time I've tried grafting. I think I did them a bit too late, to be honest, but it was just a bit of an experiment as I had these trimmings, these prunings off another plant. I'm just going to tuck round the back here if I can. Just have a look at my chocolate vine on the wall, or 3 chocolate vines. I just wanted to see if the fruits were still holding. Now they haven't got any bigger, but they also haven't fallen off, so I'm hoping that maybe those will still develop into edible fruits by the end of August or September. I think we're having a very dry summer so far, so I think the plants could be suffering a bit from drought, although they look very healthy on the top. But perhaps I should put a hose on them, give a good soaking. But in any case, the fruits are still there at the moment. I'm not going to touch them in case it makes them fall off. So I'll just extract myself again from the obstacle course that is my garden. Have a look at my Acai that is definitely an Acai. Another kiwi berry. It's got plenty of flowers on it at the moment. Sorry, plenty of fruits on it, which at the moment look as if they're developing quite nicely. Not bad for July, so I'll make sure I keep it well watered. And really pleased me, I thought that the one next to it, which had been attacked by slugs after getting badly frosted, this was the first Acai that I got last year, and I thought the plant had completely died, and now I see there's signs of growth on it, so it does look as if this might come back. So I'll obviously have to look after it and try and keep it slug free, and we'll see what happens. In fact, having seen that Acai, it now reminds me that I didn't look at the other two while I was doing the tour. Let's walk back here, see if I can find my way again through the jungle, because I have got, for people interested in kiwi berries, I have actually got 2 more on this west facing wall at the back. It's very overshadowed, and one of these is a female and one's a male, and they've really, I planted them last year and they've started to do quite well now. And one of them is, let me see, that is the male one, that's Cornell. I'm going to pop that label back in the ground if we can. And the other one is Missionary Chiandetti, which is a female. So I'm really pleased with how they're doing, and I'm hoping that eventually this male might pollinate the one that I've got on the large fence. So let's extricate myself through the obstacle course again, and that is virtually the full walk around. So I will just show you the last border, because I've got a variegated rhododendron there, and some more smaller variety Atropanthus in ground, which are doing well, and of course my large in-ground fig, which I think is a probably a long do. and that has got a few Bravas on it slowly developing, which should be ready if they don't fall off about the end of July, beginning of August. We'll see what happens, but it has got a few main crop figs developing on it as well, which if they make it should be ready by sometime in October. So anyway, that was marginally more extended garden tour than normal. I've sort of gone into a little bit more detail on the plants. So obviously I can't do all the persimmons because there's about 15 or 16 varieties still alive, and I don't want to be naming them all. Plus frankly, when they're like this, they'll look exactly the same anyway. But on the whole, looking quite healthy. Got a few plants aren't enjoying being in pots, but most of them are doing okay. But it's never ideal, really. If you had a big enough garden to put them in ground, you need to get these trees into the ground, because they would do so much better and require so much less maintenance apart from pruning. But it's a challenge, but I'm enjoying it. So thanks to anybody who's watched some or all of the video. I can't imagine anybody watching it all, it's just too long. But I do appreciate you giving me a bit of your time. Bees attracted to the passion flowers. So thanks for watching. Hopefully you could hear me okay on the phone, and hopefully it's not too blurry or too jumpy, but we'll see what happens. Appreciate you watching. Please remember to give me a thumbs up. Share the video if you think anybody might be interested in what I'm trying to do in the UK in containers. Please subscribe to my channel if any of the plants I've got interest you, and remember to click on the bell to be updated when new videos come out. I'll see you on the next video. Brett out for now.